The emergency signal cut through space like a scream. It reached every major star system in the galaxy, carrying the same desperate message over and over again. The Veltari were dying, and they needed help. Captain Lee Dongwu was drinking his morning coffee when the communication officer burst into his quarters aboard the Incheon's Pride. The young woman's face was pale, her hands shaking as she handed him the decoded message. "Sir, you need to see this right away," she said. "It's from Kepler 442b, the mining colony there." Lee took the datapad and read the translation. The words made his blood run cold. The Veltari, a peaceful insect-like species that had been mining rare metals on the distant world for over 200 years, were under attack. Something called the Morgoth swarm had arrived at their planet 3 days ago. The creatures were eating everything. The ground, the buildings, even the air itself seemed to be consumed by these monsters. The Veltari had 72 hours left before their entire civilization would be wiped out. 3 million people would die if no one came to help them. Lee stood up and walked to his window. Outside, the stars looked peaceful and distant. It was hard to believe that somewhere out there an entire species was fighting for survival. "Has anyone responded to their call?" he asked. The communication officer shook her head. "The Galactic Council received the message 6 hours ago." "They're still discussing it," Lee frowned. The Galactic Council was made up of 47 different alien civilizations. They were smart, advanced, and very careful about everything they did. Sometimes too careful. "Get me a direct line to Admiral Kim Tae-hyun," Lee ordered. "And wake up Dr. Park So-min. Tell her we might have a situation." 20 minutes later, Lee was talking to his superior through a secure channel. Admiral Kim's weathered face appeared on the screen, looking tired and frustrated. "I know why you're calling, Captain," Kim said before Lee could speak. "The answer is no. We have direct orders to stay away from Kepler 442b. But, sir, 3 million people are going to die. 3 million aliens, Captain, not humans. The Council has made it clear that any intervention would violate the non-interference directive. The Morgoth swarm is too dangerous. If we attack them, they might turn their attention to more populated systems." Lee felt anger rising in his chest. "So we just let them die?" "That's not our decision to make. The Council will vote on the matter in 18 hours. Until then, we maintain our current position and observe." The transmission ended, leaving Lee staring at a blank screen. He walked to his bridge where his crew was already gathered around the main display. They had all heard the Veltari message by now. Their faces showed the same mix of anger and helplessness that Lee felt. Dr. Park So-min was standing near the science station, her dark eyes focused on the data streaming in from Kepler 442b. She was the ship's chief expert on alien life forms and had spent years studying the Veltari culture. "How bad is it, Doctor?" Lee asked. Park looked up from her console. "It's worse than the message indicated. I'm picking up massive energy signatures around the planet. Whatever these Morgoth creatures are, they're using technology we've never seen before. Their ships appear to be alive. Alive? Biological. Grown rather than built. Each one is the size of a small moon, and they're literally eating the planet's surface. At this rate, Kepler 442b will be completely stripped of all life within 3 days." Lee looked at the tactical display. His ship, the Incheon's Pride, was powerful for a human vessel. It had experimental weapon systems and the best crew in the human fleet. But against moon-sized creatures that could eat planets, it seemed pathetically small. "What about the other galactic civilizations?" asked Commander Yoon Da-eun, his tactical officer. "Surely someone will help," Park shook her head. "I've been monitoring the Council's communications. The Altarians say intervention would be strategically unwise. The Centauri Federation calls it an acceptable loss. The Andromedans are worried that helping the Veltari might make the Morgoth angry." "Coward," muttered Engineer Choi Hyun-woo from his station. "All of them." Lee walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. These were good people. They had families back on Earth, dreams and plans for the future. He had no right to ask them to throw their lives away for strangers, but as he looked at their faces, he saw the same thing in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They couldn't just stand by and watch 3 million innocent people die. "Choi," he said to his engineer, "how long would it take us to reach Kepler 442b at maximum speed?" 14 hours, sir. "But our orders—" "I know our orders." Lee took a deep breath. "I also know that somewhere out there, children are hiding in underground shelters while monsters eat their world. And apparently we're the only ones in the entire galaxy who think that's wrong. The bridge fell silent. Lee could hear the soft hum of the ship's engines and the quiet beeping of various instruments. Outside the windows, the stars waited. "This is not an order," Lee said slowly. "This is a choice. We can follow our orders and stay here while the Veltari die. Or we can do what humans have always done when someone needed help. We can answer the call." One by one, his crew members spoke up. "I'm with you, Captain," said Dr. Park. "Count me in," added Commander Yoon. Engineer Choi grinned. "Those weapon systems I've been working on? Time to see if they actually work." Within minutes, every member of the crew had volunteered, 847 humans, all willing to risk everything for people they had never met. Lee sat down in his captain's chair and gave the order that would change everything. Set course for Kepler 442b, maximum speed. As the Incheon's Pride turned toward the distant star system, Lee opened a communication channel to the Veltari colony. The response came quickly, a strange clicking voice filled with desperate hope. "This is Elder Kithara of the Veltari Mining Collective." "Who is this?" "Are you here to help us?" "This is Captain Lee Dongwoo of the human vessel Incheon's Pride. We received your message. We're coming to get you out of there." There was a long pause. When the Veltari elder spoke again, there were tears in his alien voice. "In 800 years of galactic civilization, no one has ever answered our calls for help. Thank you, humans. Thank you for caring about strangers." Lee looked out at the stars ahead and felt the weight of what they were about to face. They were one ship against an enemy that had destroyed 23 star systems. The odds of survival were almost zero, but they were going anyway, because that's what humans did. The Incheon's Pride dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What Captain Lee Dongwoo saw on his main screen made his stomach turn cold. Kepler 442b looked like it was being eaten alive. Massive shapes moved across the planet's surface like hungry shadows. These were the Morgeth bioships, and they were even worse than the reports had described. Each one was the size of a small moon, with writhing tentacles that reached down to tear chunks from the planet itself. "Sweet mercy," whispered Dr. Park So-min from her station. "How many of them are there?" 47 confirmed bioships, reported Commander Yoon. "And they're all actively feeding on the planet's surface. I'm reading massive displacement of rock and soil. They're literally eating the ground." Lee watched in horror as one of the creatures lifted what looked like an entire mountain into its gaping mouth. Where the mountain had been, there was now just empty space. The planet was being hollowed out from the outside in. "Captain," called the communications officer, "I'm getting multiple signals from underground shelters across the planet. The Veltari are still alive, but barely. Put me through to Elder Kithara." The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The Veltari looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a butterfly, with large compound eyes and delicate antennae. Elder Kithara's usual bright green coloring had faded to a sickly yellow, and his antennae drooped with exhaustion. "Captain Lee," the elder said, his voice clicking with emotion, "you actually came. I was beginning to think I had imagined your message. We're here, Elder. What's your situation down there?" 3.2 million survivors in underground shelters across 17 locations. Our surface cities are gone. The creatures arrived 4 days ago and began feeding immediately. We estimate 12 hours before they break through to our deepest shelters. Lee studied the tactical display. The Morgeth bioships were spread across the planet's surface like a plague. Each one was protected by smaller creatures that swarmed around them like angry insects. "Elder, we need to get your people off that planet. Can you move them to evacuation points? Our transportation systems are destroyed. Most of our people are trapped where they are. And Captain," Elder Kithara paused, "even if we could move everyone, your ship cannot hold 3 million beings." Lee knew the elder was right. The Incheon's Pride could maybe hold 50,000 people if they packed them in like cargo, but 3 million was impossible. "We'll figure something out," Lee said. "Keep your people safe for now. We're going to clear you a path." Engineer Choi Hyun-woo was already running calculations at his station. "Captain, I've been studying these bioships. They're unlike anything we've ever seen. Living armor, self-healing hulls, and energy weapons that seem to be grown rather than built." "What about our quantum disruptors?" Choi grinned, but it was not a happy expression. "The good news is that biological matter should be vulnerable to quantum disruption. The bad news is that we've never tested the disruptors on anything this large. And sir, there's something else." "What?" These creatures are connected. I'm picking up bioneural signals between all the ships. They're not just working together, they're thinking together. It's like one giant brain spread across 47 bodies. Dr. Park looked up from her xenobiology scans. That explains their coordination. But it might also be a weakness. If we can disrupt their neural network, we might be able to confuse them. Lee nodded. What do you need? Time to develop a biological weapon, something that targets their neural connections. But I'll need samples of their biomatter to create it. Which means we need to get close to one of those things. Commander Yoon pulled up a tactical plan on her screen. Captain, I recommend we start with the smaller ships on the planet's edge. If we can isolate one from the group, we might be able to take it down and get the samples Dr. Park needs. Lee studied the plan. It was dangerous, maybe suicidal, but it was the only chance they had. Do it. All hands to battle stations. The Incheon's pride moved toward the planet like a hunting shark. As they approached, the Morgeth bioships began to react. Several of the smaller creatures detached from the main feeding group and moved to intercept the human vessel. Here they come, Commander Yoon announced. 3 bioships, each about the size of our ship. They're moving fast. Lee gripped his command chair as the first enemy ship appeared on screen. It looked like a massive jellyfish made of black metal, with tentacles that crackled with bioelectric energy. As he watched, the creature's mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth the size of buildings. Fire quantum disruptors, Lee ordered. The Incheon's pride unleashed its experimental weapons. Beams of twisted space-time struck the bioship's hull, and for a moment, Lee thought they had failed. Then sections of the creature's armor began to dissolve into nothing. The bioship screamed. It was not a sound that could be heard in space, but somehow every human on the bridge felt it in their bones. The creature thrashed wildly, its tentacles whipping through space as it tried to escape the quantum beams. It's working, shouted Engineer Choi. The disruptors are breaking down its biological structure at the molecular level. But even as the first bioship died, the other 2 were closing in. Their tentacles reached out toward the human vessel, crackling with deadly energy. Evasive maneuvers, Lee commanded. Pilot Kang Minho threw the ship into a spinning dive that would have made any normal person sick. The bioship's energy blasts missed by meters, scorching the space where the Incheon's pride had been moments before. Return fire. All weapons! The human ship's missile launchers added their firepower to the quantum disruptors. Explosions bloomed across the bioship's hulls, but their living armor was already healing itself. Captain, Dr. Park called out. I'm detecting something. These creatures are learning from our attacks. Their armor is adapting to our weapons frequency. As if to prove her point, the next volley of quantum disruptor beams barely scratched the bioship's hulls. The creatures had somehow developed immunity to the human weapons in a matter of minutes. Choi, can you modify the disruptor frequency? Working on it, sir, but it'll take time we don't have. The bioships were closing in, their massive forms blocking out the stars. Lee could see their mouths opening, ready to devour his ship and crew. That's when Pilot Kang did something that no military manual would ever recommend. Instead of trying to run from the bioships, he flew directly at them. Kang, what are you doing? Lee shouted. Something stupid, sir. But it might work. The Incheon's pride dove between the 2 attacking bioships just as they fired their energy weapons. Unable to stop their attack, the creatures struck each other instead of the human vessel. Bioelectric energy tore through living hulls, and both monsters reeled backward in pain and confusion. Now. Hit them while they're disoriented! The modified quantum disruptors found their mark. Both bioships dissolved into space dust, their death screams echoing through the neural network of the entire Morgeth swarm. Dr. Park was already analyzing the biomatter samples they had collected. I've got what I need, Captain. Give me 6 hours and I can have a neural disruptor ready. Lee looked at the tactical display. They had destroyed 3 bioships, but 44 remained. And now the entire swarm knew that humans were here. Elder Cathera, he called to the planet below. We're going to get you out of there. I promise. The Veltari Elder's image flickered on screen, hope flickering in his compound eyes. Captain, in our 800 years of civilization, we have learned that promises are easy to make and hard to keep. But somehow when humans make a promise, we believe it. Lee looked out at the remaining bioships and felt the weight of 3 million lives on his shoulders. They had bought themselves some time, but the real battle was just beginning. The entire Morgeth swarm turned toward the Incheon's pride like a pack of hungry wolves sensing blood. Captain Lee Dongwu watched the tactical display as 44 massive bioships began moving away from the planet's surface. Their feeding had stopped. Now they wanted to destroy the humans who had dared to fight back. "Captain," Commander Yoon Da-eun reported from her station, "the bioships are forming an attack formation. They're surrounding us." Lee nodded grimly. He had expected this. The death screams of the 3 bioships they had destroyed had alerted the entire swarm. Now every creature in the system knew exactly where the human ship was. "Dr. Park, how long until you have that neural disruptor ready?" 4 hours minimum, Captain. I need time to understand their bio-neural structure. We may not have 4 hours. Choi, what's our weapon status? Engineer Choi Hyun-woo looked up from his console with a worried expression. The quantum disruptors are working, but barely. These creatures adapt fast. Each shot is less effective than the last. Pretty soon our weapons won't even scratch them. Lee walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. They were scared, he could see it in their eyes. But they were still here, still fighting. That was what made humans special. Then we don't fight them the way they expect, Lee said. We fight them the human way. He turned to pilot Kang Min-ho. Remember your history lessons about ancient Earth warfare? What did small forces do when they faced larger armies? Kang's eyes lit up with understanding. Guerrilla tactics, sir. Hit and run. Strike fast, then disappear before the enemy can respond. Exactly. We can't win a straight fight, so we don't fight straight. We make them chase us. We pick off the weak ones when they're separated from the group. Dr. Park looked up from her biological samples. Captain, I've discovered something important. These bioships don't just share information, they share energy. When one is damaged, the others can help heal it. But if we can isolate a single ship, it becomes vulnerable, Lee finished. Good. That's exactly what we need. The Inchen's pride began moving in strange patterns around the edge of the Morgeth formation. They would dart in, fire a few shots at the nearest bioship, then race away before the swarm could respond. It was like a mosquito attacking an elephant, annoying but apparently harmless. But Lee had a plan. Kang, I want you to focus on that bioship on the far edge, the one that looks smaller than the others. Draw it away from the group. Pilot Kang grinned and pushed the ship's engines to maximum. The Incheon's pride swooped toward the target bioship, fired a burst from the quantum disruptors, then immediately fled toward the outer edge of the system. The bioship took the bait. It broke away from the main formation and gave chase, its tentacles reaching out hungrily toward the human vessel. But as it moved further from its companion, something interesting happened. Captain, Dr. Park called out excitedly. The isolated bioship's bio-neural signals are weakening. It's losing connection with the swarm mind. How long before it's completely cut off? At this distance. Maybe 10 minutes. Lee smiled. It was working. All right, people. In 10 minutes, that thing becomes just another oversized monster, instead of part of a super-intelligent hive mind. Let's see how smart it is on its own. As they waited, Lee opened a communication channel to Elder Kithara on the planet below. Elder, how are your people holding up? The Veltari's image appeared on screen, but the quality was poor. The bioship's feeding was interfering with all communications. Captain Lee, the creatures have stopped their surface feeding. This has bought us some time, but we estimate only 8 hours before they break through to our deepest shelters. We're working on a solution. In the meantime, I need you to do something for us. Anything, Captain. We need detailed information about your mining equipment, specifically your planet crackers. Elder Kithara's antennae twitched with surprise. Our mining tools? Captain, those are designed to break apart asteroids for mineral extraction. They're not weapons. Maybe not originally, Lee said, but we humans have a talent for turning peaceful tools into weapons when we need to. Can you send us the technical specifications? Of course. But Captain, even our most powerful planet crackers are designed to work on rock and metal. These bioships are alive. They heal themselves. Let us worry about that. Elder, just send us the data. As the information flowed into the Inchen's Pride's computers, Engineer Choi began studying the Veltari mining technology. His eyes grew wide as he read the specifications. Captain, these planet crackers are incredible. They use focused gravity waves to literally tear matter apart at the atomic level. If we could modify them to work on biological tissue. Can you do it? Give me the neural disruptor that Dr. Park is working on. Combine it with this gravity wave technology, and yes, I think I can build something that will crack these bioships like eggs. Dr. Park looked up from her research station. The neural disruptor is almost ready. But Captain, we'll need to test it on that isolated bioship. Lee looked at the tactical display. The lone bioship was still chasing them, but it was moving more slowly now. Its connection to the swarm mind was almost completely severed. Time to find out if our plan works. Kang, bring us around. Let's give this thing a taste of human ingenuity. The Inchon's pride turned back toward the isolated bioship. The creature immediately charged at them, its mouth opening to reveal rows of massive teeth. But something was different now. Its movements were less coordinated, more animal-like. Fire neural disruptor, Lee ordered. Dr. Park's weapon sent invisible bio-neural interference directly into the creature's brain. The bioship suddenly stopped moving and began thrashing wildly in space. Its tentacles flailed in all directions as it lost control of its own body. It's working, Dr. Park shouted. The creature is completely confused. It can't coordinate its movements or weapons. Now hit it with everything we have. The Inchon's pride unleashed every weapon it possessed. Quantum disruptors, missile batteries, and even the ship's emergency mining lasers, all focused on the helpless bioship. Without the swarm mind to help it adapt and heal, the creature was just a very large, very confused animal. The bioship died, with a sound like breaking glass. Its hull cracked apart and dissolved into space, leaving behind only drifting biomatter. "One down," Commander Yoon reported. 43 to go. But Lee was already looking at the main swarm formation. The other bioships had felt their companion's death and they were angry. "Very angry, Captain," the communications officer called out. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the bioships. They're doing something." On the main screen, the remaining Morgoth creatures began to glow with an eerie light. Their bio-neural signals were growing stronger, more focused. Dr. Park studied her instruments with growing alarm. "Captain, they're calling for help. That energy signature. It's a distress beacon. They're summoning more of their kind." Lee felt his blood turn cold. "How many more?" "I'm detecting faster-than-light signatures throughout the sector." "Captain, there are hundreds of bioships heading this way, maybe thousands." Lee looked at his crew. They had just proven that humans could fight the Morgoth and win. But now the entire swarm was coming for them. "How long until they arrive?" 18 hours, sir." Lee opened a channel to Admiral Kim Tae-hyun back at human headquarters. "Admiral, this is Captain Lee. We've engaged the Morgoth swarm and discovered how to fight them. But we're about to be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. We need immediate assistance." Admiral Kim's face appeared on screen, looking both proud and terrified. "Captain, you've started a war with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. But I'll be damned if we let you fight it alone. The entire human fleet is on its way." Lee smiled grimly. The entire human fleet consisted of 23 ships. Against thousands of bioships, it would still be hopeless. But they were coming anyway. Because that's what humans did. Captain Lee Dong-woo stood on the bridge of the Incheon's Pride and watched the scanner displays with growing dread. Hundreds of new faster-than-light signatures were appearing throughout the sector. The Morgoth swarm had called for help, and their call was being answered. 237 confirmed bioships incoming, reported Commander Yoon Da-eun. More are appearing every hour. At this rate, we'll be facing over 400 of them. Lee nodded grimly. The math was simple and terrifying. Even with the entire human fleet of 23 ships, they would be outnumbered more than 15 to 1. And that was assuming all the human ships arrived in time. "Status report on the evacuation?" Lee asked. Chief Petty Officer Lim Sung-joon looked up from his station. For the past 6 hours, he had been coordinating the desperate effort to get the Veltari off their dying planet. "We've managed to evacuate 400,000 people so far, Captain. But we're running out of space." Lee looked at the numbers. 400,000 saved out of 3 million. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "Strip everything non-essential from the ship," Lee ordered. "Weapons storage, extra equipment, even the furniture from crew quarters. Make room for as many people as we can." "Sir," Lim said carefully, "even if we remove everything, we can maybe fit 800,000 people total. That still leaves over 2 million Veltari on the planet." Lee felt the weight of those numbers pressing down on him. 2 million lives. How do you choose who lives and who dies? How do you look at families and tell them there's no room on the rescue ships? "Contact Elder Kithara," Lee said. "We need to discuss priorities." The Veltari Elder's image appeared on the main screen. He looked even more exhausted than before, but there was something else in his compound eyes now. gratitude mixed with sadness. "Captain Lee," Elder Kithara said, "my people are calling you the miracle workers. In 400 years, no species has ever tried to help us during a crisis. Now you are here fighting impossible odds to save strangers. Elder, we have a problem. We can't save everyone. We need to prioritize who gets evacuated first." Elder Kithara was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was steady but filled with pain. "Captain, I have lived for 300 years. I have seen my children grow and have children of their own. If choices must be made, save the young ones first. Save the future of our species." Lee felt his throat tighten. "Elder, no, Captain. This is how it must be. The old have had their time. The young deserve their chance." Dr. Park So-min looked up from her biological research station. "Captain, I have good news and bad news about the neural disruptor weapon. Give me the good news first. I've successfully combined the neural disruptor with the Veltari planet cracker technology. The new weapon can kill a bioship in seconds instead of minutes. It tears apart their neural network and their physical structure at the same time. And the bad news? The weapon has a very short range. We have to get within 500 meters of a bioship to use it effectively. That's practically ramming distance." Lee understood immediately. To use their new superweapon, human ships would have to fly directly into the mouths of the bioships. It was a suicide mission. Engineer Choi Hyun-woo had been listening to the conversation. "Captain, I've been thinking about our tactical situation. These bioships are massive, but they're also slow. Our ships are much faster and more agile. What are you suggesting? Hit-and-run attacks won't work anymore. There are too many of them. But if we could get our ships close enough to use the new weapon..." Choi paused. "Sir, we could modify our ships to ram into the bioships while firing the planet cracker weapon. Turn our vessels into guided missiles." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what Choi was suggesting. The human ships would have to sacrifice themselves to kill the bioships. It was a one-way trip. "How many bioships could we destroy that way?" Lee asked. "With 23 human ships? Maybe 30 bioships if we're lucky. But Captain, that still leaves hundreds of enemies." Lee looked at his crew. These were good people with families and dreams. He had no right to ask them to die for strangers, but he also knew what their answer would be. "All hands, this is the captain," Lee announced over the ship's communication system. "In 12 hours, the largest Morgoth swarm in galactic history will arrive in this system. We have enough firepower to hurt them, but not enough to win. Our only chance is to turn our ships into weapons and ram the bioships directly." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I won't order anyone to take this mission. This has to be a choice. Anyone who wants to transfer to the evacuation shuttles can do so now. No questions asked." Lee waited for responses. The first came from pilot Kang Min-ho. "Captain, with respect, where exactly would we transfer to? There are no other human ships here yet. We're all in this together. Besides," added Dr. Park, "someone has to make sure the Veltari children get safely evacuated. Might as well be us." One by one, every crew member on the Incheon's Pride volunteered to stay. 847 humans, all willing to die so that strangers might live. But Lee was already thinking ahead to an even bigger problem. Even if they destroyed 30 bioships, hundreds more would remain. The Veltari would still die, just more slowly. That's when the impossible happened. "Captain," the communications officer called out with excitement, "I'm detecting new faster-than-light signatures. But these aren't Morgoth bioships." Lee looked at the tactical display. New contacts were appearing throughout the system, but these ships had different energy signatures. Clean, technological signatures instead of biological ones. "Sir," the communications officer continued, "I'm receiving a message. It's from the Altarian Republic." The main screen flickered and an alien face appeared. The Altarian looked like a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with silver eyes. Lee recognized him as Admiral Zontar, one of the most respected military leaders in the galaxy. "Captain Lee of the human vessel Incheon's Pride," Admiral Zontar said formally. "The Altarian Third Fleet is entering the system to provide assistance." Lee couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Admiral, your government specifically voted against helping the Veltari." Admiral Zontar's expression was grim but determined. "Captain, my government made a political decision, but my officers and I have been watching your actions for the past 18 hours. We have seen humans risk everything to save people they barely know. We have seen courage that shames our own caution." More signals appeared on the tactical display. Ships from a dozen different civilizations were arriving in the system. "Captain Lee, came another voice, this one from a Centauri Federation admiral. "The Federation has reconsidered its position. We're here to help." Lee felt tears forming in his eyes as more and more alien fleets arrived. The Andromedans, the Rigel Confederacy, even the mysterious Vegan Collective. Species that had refused to help just hours before were now sending their most powerful warships to fight alongside humans. "Why?" Lee asked. "What changed your minds?" Admiral Zontar answered for all of them. "Captain, for centuries we have prided ourselves on being logical, practical, and politically wise. We calculated the risks and decided the Veltari were not worth saving. But you humans didn't calculate anything. You just saw people in trouble and came to help." He paused, looking directly at Lee through the communication screen. "You've reminded us what it means to do the right thing, even when it's not the smart thing. Today we choose to be more human." Lee looked at the tactical display. What had been a hopeless battle against impossible odds was now becoming the largest Allied fleet in galactic history. Over 300 ships from 15 different civilizations, all united by a simple human principle. When someone needs help, you answer the call. But even as hope filled his heart, Lee knew the hardest part was still ahead. The Morgoth swarm was coming, and they were very, very angry. The largest space battle in galactic history began with a scream. 412 Morgoth bioships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Each one was the size of a small moon, their living hulls pulsing with bioelectric energy. They moved together like a single massive organism, driven by one terrible purpose: destroy the creatures that had dared to fight them. Captain Lee Dongwu stood on the bridge of the Inchen's Pride and watched the enemy fleet approach. Behind him, 327 Allied ships from 15 different civilizations waited for his signal. It was strange. Humans were the newest members of galactic society, yet somehow they had become the leaders of this desperate alliance. "All ships report ready, Captain," Commander Yoon announced. "The Altarians have their quantum cannons charged. The Centauri have deployed their plasma lances. Everyone is waiting for your orders." Lee opened a communication channel to the entire Allied fleet. "This is Captain Lee to all ships. Today we fight not for politics or territory or resources. We fight for 3 million innocent people who called for help when no one else would listen. We fight because it's the right thing to do." He paused, looking at the massive enemy formation approaching them. "The Morgoth think they can scare us by bringing more ships. They think we'll run away if they make the odds impossible enough. They don't understand that humans don't run from bullies. We run toward them." Lee took a deep breath. "All ships, attack formation. Let's show these monsters what happens when you threaten the innocent." The Allied fleet moved forward like a wave of light against the darkness. Human ships flew alongside Altarian cruisers and Centauri destroyers. Species that had been political rivals for centuries now fought side by side, united by a simple human idea. When someone needs help, you answer. The first exchange of fire lit up space like a miniature star. The bioships launched streams of bioelectric energy that could melt through any known armor. The Allied ships responded with quantum cannons, plasma lances, and gravity bombs. Explosions bloomed between the two fleets as energy met matter in violent collision. But the Morgoth had learned from their earlier fights with the humans. Their bioships began adapting to the Allied weapons even as the battle raged. Energy that had torn through their hulls minutes before now barely scratched their adaptive armor. "Captain," Dr. Park So-min called from her station. "The bioships are evolving their defenses in real time. Our weapons are becoming less effective every minute." Lee nodded grimly. He had expected this. "Then we use the weapons they can't adapt to. All human ships prepare for ramming attacks. Deploy the planet cracker warheads." Captain Ryu J. Sung of the destroyer Busan's Thunder was the first to volunteer. "Captain Lee, this is Ryu. My ship is loaded with planet crackers and ready to go. It's been an honor serving with you." Lee watched on his tactical display as the Busan's Thunder broke away from the main fleet and accelerated directly toward the largest bioship. The Morgoth creature tried to swat the human destroyer with its massive tentacles, but Captain Ryu was too fast and too determined. The Busan's Thunder struck the bioship's hull at full speed, just as its planet cracker warheads detonated. The explosion tore through the creature's living armor and into its bio-neural core. The bioship died instantly, its massive body going dark and drifting lifeless through space. "One down," Captain Ryu's voice came over the communication channel, weak but triumphant. 411 to go, but there was no time to celebrate. The death of their companion had enraged the other bioships, and they were converging on the Allied fleet with terrible fury. Engineer Choi Hyun-woo looked up from his station with excitement. "Captain, I'm reading massive neural feedback through the Morgoth network. When we killed that bioship with the planet cracker, it sent shockwaves through their hive mind. They're confused and disoriented." Dr. Park was studying her biological scanners intently. "Captain, I think I understand what's happening. The planet cracker weapons don't just destroy the bioship's physical structure. They disrupt their neural connections to the hive mind. It's like giving the entire swarm a massive headache." Lee saw the opportunity immediately. "All ships with planet cracker weapons begin ramming attacks. Target the largest bioships first. If we can disrupt their neural network enough, the smaller ships might lose coordination." What followed was the most heroic and tragic hour in human military history. One by one, human ships loaded with planet cracker warheads flew directly into the mouths of bioships. The Soul's Pride, the Daegu's Hammer, the Gwangju's Hope, each ship and crew sacrificing themselves to save strangers they had never met. With each successful ramming attack, the Morgoth swarm became more confused and disorganized. Their perfect coordination began to break down as neural feedback cascaded through their hive mind. Admiral Kim Tae-hyun arrived with the remaining human fleet just as the tide of battle began to turn. "Captain Lee, this is Admiral Kim. Sorry we're late to the party. What's our situation?" Lee looked at his tactical display. 18 human ships had been destroyed in ramming attacks, but they had taken 37 bioships with them. More importantly, the surviving bioships were no longer acting as one coordinated force. "Admiral, the swarm's hive mind is breaking down. If we can destroy their command ships, the largest bioships that coordinate the others, the rest might become just mindless animals." "Understood. All remaining human ships form up for a final assault. Let's finish this." The climactic battle lasted 3 hours. Human ships, supported by their alien allies, fought with desperate courage against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Pilot Kang Min-ho led fighter squadrons in suicidal runs against bioship neural centers. Dr. Shin Hyun's biological weapons finally began working as the creature's adaptive abilities failed under neural disruption. When the largest bioship, the one that contained the Morgoth Queen Mind, finally died under the combined fire of 50 allied ships, something unprecedented happened. The remaining bioships simply stopped fighting. Without their queen to guide them, they became nothing more than confused animals, drifting aimlessly through space. The Battle of Kepler 442 was over. The Morgoth swarm that had destroyed 23 star systems was defeated by an alliance they had never imagined possible. Lee stood in the cargo bay of the Incheon's Pride and watched as the last group of Veltari refugees came aboard. Elder Kithara was among them, his compound eyes bright with tears of gratitude. "Captain Lee," the elder said, "our language has no words for what you have done. You came when no one else would. You fought when everyone said it was impossible. You saved us when the galaxy had already written us off as dead." Lee looked around the cargo bay, packed with Veltari families holding their children close. 3 million lives saved. It had cost 18 human ships and nearly 4,000 human lives. But 3 million people were alive because humans had answered their call for help. "Elder," Lee said quietly, "we didn't do this alone. The entire galaxy came together to save your people." "Yes," Elder Kithara replied, "but only after humans showed them how." 6 months later, the Galactic Council met to discuss the new reality. The non-interference directive was formally abolished, replaced by something humans called the Good Neighbor Protocol. When any species called for help, the galaxy would answer. The Veltari named their new homeworld Insanwi Jip, humans' home in their ancient language. They also established the first interspecies military alliance based not on politics or trade, but on mutual protection and shared values. Captain Lee Dong-woo's final log entry became required reading in every military academy across the galaxy. Today we learned that courage is contagious. When humans chose to help strangers, it inspired an entire galaxy to be better than they thought possible. The Veltari begged for rescue and the galaxy said no, so we said yes. Because sometimes doing the right thing is more important than doing the smart thing. Because when someone calls for help, you answer, because that's what humans do. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the newest voice in the room has the most important thing to say. And sometimes being human isn't about what species you belong to. It's about what you choose to do when others need help.